Hey, this is Brian with worshiptutorials.com. I got an email the other day, and the email went something like this. He said, dude, music stands. Where do I even start? And so this is a video about how to transition from using music stands to not using music stands in your church. Now, music stands are like a hotly debated topic. I don't know why, but it brings out emotions in people. At our church, we don't use music stands, and we love it, and we think that it creates a better worship environment for us. We're not saying that that's true for every church, but there's a video that I'll link to right up here. You can click that and you can see why we don't use music stands at our church. But if you're a church and you want to go from using music stands to not using music stands, this is the video for you. I'm not even going to talk about this one myself. I've asked a good friend of mine, Fuller, to come and share his thoughts. He has a wealth of experience, and he's done it multiple times at a church where he has been the worship leader and led the way in going from using music stands to not using music stands successfully in a way that people celebrate it and are excited about it. So here's Fuller to tell you more about it.
So today we're going to talk about what is the best way to shift from a culture of having music stands to a culture where we're not really using music stands. And let me just encourage you today by saying it's a process, and you don't want to speed it up too fast. You don't want to rush through it. You want to take your time. And more than anything, I think of God's commandments: love God and love your neighbor. I think anytime you're making a decision that's going to affect your ministry and possibly your worship experience, you need to make sure you honor God and you honor people through the whole process. And the whole point for me, getting rid of music stands as a worship team, the whole point is to make a better worship experience. And so only you can decide whether that's something that you need to do at this time. Maybe you're in a season where you don't need to do that, and that's perfectly fine. There are a lot of great churches that use music stands, but for a lot of you, you're at that point where you want to do it, you want to take that step, and you just want to hear about some experiences on the best way to do it. So we want to honor God and we want to honor people. So once you've established that not using music stands is going to make a really great impact for our culture, let's talk about the best way to facilitate those changes. So I'm going to break it up into 4 steps today. The first step is to assess your current culture. The last thing you want to do is to make a change just because you want to make a change. You want to look at your whole team, you want to look at all your musicians and all of the people that are consistently performing and doing these worship songs with you, and you want to ask yourself, is this even possible right now? Make sure that your culture is set up in a way that if you remove the music stands, that things wouldn't fall flat on its face. Let me give you a couple examples. When I first got to where I was and I knew that I wanted to remove the music stands, I looked around, I talked to the musicians, and I kind of assessed where they were. And I realized because of where they were and because of what they were ready to do, I felt like it was going to be a pretty safe transition to remove the stands accordingly. And fortunately, it worked out well for us. We had some challenges along the way, which you might have those, but that's okay. And so you want to take baby steps. So you want to assess the culture. You want to look at your musicians and go, are these guys capable of memorizing these songs? Because here's what you want to realize. You're not just removing a music stand. And maybe that's what you're thinking in your head, but what you got to realize is that stand has music on it. So the music is here. So if you remove the stand, you want to make sure you're not removing the music. The music has to be here. It has to be in the mind and in the hearts of the musicians. Otherwise, you're taking away their music and they don't know what to play. And so you need to make sure that you have a culture where your musicians have enough time to come prepared and to memorize this stuff. Because that's really what we're talking about here. Removing a music stand, what you're really saying is I want everyone to memorize the music. So look at the culture of your team and ask yourself this question. If I take away the music stands, are the musicians resourced and equipped well enough to be ready to perform these songs? Again, it comes back to honoring people. If you take away their music, you're not honoring them. However, if you take away the stands, but they still have time to prepare the music, they have a few days to learn this music and live with it, now you're honoring people and you're creating an environment where they can safely express themselves without freaking out about not knowing the music. So we want to honor people and make sure we're equipping them. Listen, if you don't have a rehearsal and your team is used to showing up on Sunday mornings and they're not even really knowing what songs they're going to be doing till Sunday morning, taking music stands is probably a bad idea. So you want to backtrack and go, well, what can we do to work towards this? Maybe it's getting them the music earlier. Maybe they need a week. And if it's a week, then you have to commit to that. We're going to take away the music stands, but we're going to replace them with making sure you have the music that you need so you have time to learn it and be prepared. Okay, so part number 2 of the process of removing music stands, as I've discovered, is this: lead by example. Maybe you have a team of 20 musicians and they're not quite ready to remove music stands, but maybe you're the worship leader. Maybe you're the person in the middle of the stage that's directing worship, that's singing a lot of the song, and that's really moving people towards the environment. So what I'd say to you is take your music stand out. Do what you need to do to lead by example. It's okay if you show up and you don't need the music stand. You have all the music memorized, you know all the transitions, you know where everything's gonna go, and everyone else still has their stands. What you're saying to everyone else is that I'm committing to this, and I'm gonna do this, and this is gonna help create a better environment. Just by doing that alone, your worship is going to have a better experience because you, as the leader, are going to be able to connect to the congregation in a new way that you haven't before. It's going to be very freeing, and I'll tell you right now, it's going to also be contagious. So before you start worrying about, oh, is the drummer going to be able to learn a song or whatever, just lead by example and say, you know what, I'm going to commit to not having a music stand. And then you're gonna learn through that process what your musicians need, because you're gonna know what you need. Maybe you do that and you realize, you know what, I don't have enough time to learn these songs. So then through that process, you might say, oh, you know what, we need to get these songs picked a little bit earlier. And then once you are ready to help the other members lose their music stands, you've already led the way, and people see the effectiveness of it, and it's going to be inspiring, it's going to be leading by example, and people are going to be excited about it. And again, it all comes down to honoring God and honoring people. Step 3 is to now, when you really feel like your team is ready, you want to cast a compelling vision for why you want to get rid of music stands. You want to do it with sincerity. You want to do it with honoring God and honoring people in mind. And once you do that, it's time to actually get down and dirty and start doing the work. And what you're going to want to do is you don't want to spring this on people. You don't want to just get everybody together in the room and say, hey guys, I've decided I hate music stands, we're getting rid of them. That never usually works. You've already led by example, you've already assessed the culture, and now you're going to get together, knowing your people, knowing where they're at, and you're going to say, hey, this is what I think we're ready to do as a team. I've personally been doing it. It's led to greater, deeper worship experience for me personally, and I want that for you. And what you want to do is you want to basically cast vision, get them excited about it, and then you want to give them a time frame. You don't want to say, starting tomorrow, we're not using music stands, because that's going to freak everyone out, and that's going to create stress and drama that no one needs. You want to say, hey guys, we're going to journey through this together, and I'm thinking by the end of this summer, I want to have completely no music stands. And that'll give people a goal and a deadline, and then what you'll find is some of the musicians are going to move a little ahead of the curve. Some of them may show up next week with no stands because they just want to jump in. Others are going to kind of experiment. Maybe they'll try one song without a stand. Maybe they'll kind of work their way into it. But what you're doing is you're giving them freedom to kind of figure things out on their own. But at the end of the day, you've got a deadline and saying, hey guys, this is where we're going. And then based on that and their response, you can help them journey through and walk through any sort of personal challenges that individual people might have. Here's the final step. Number 4 is where it starts to really get difficult and where you really got to start executing. But I want to give you some baby steps. Again, you don't want to just, as a whole, just say, we're getting rid of all these music stands. You want to think about some small ways to do it along the way that eventually the deadline comes around and you realize, hey, we're doing this without music stand. The first one is what I've already talked about, you leading by example. If you, the leader, aren't willing to do the extra work and to get rid of the stand and model that, then I don't think your team is probably ready. So you want to model that. The second step, and this is just my personal opinion, but I've seen it work in leadership, is that you want to look around your team and go, hey, is there one person on this team that really gets it, that's really kind of ahead of the curve? Maybe you tap one other person on the shoulder that has influence, that has leadership, and say, will you do this with me? So you lose your music stand, and then maybe the lead guitar player commits to you and says, you know what, I'm gonna do it without music stand too. And so then you got both of you guys or girls showing up at rehearsal and on Sunday not using music stands. So what you're already doing is you're kind of building this culture, it's starting to spread, it's contagious, and then everyone else is starting to look at that going, hey, this is really cool, this is a great idea. I've figured out ways over the years to kind of create some cheat sheets, because again, you're removing the music stand because it's this physical object between the musician or singer and the congregation. So we're moving this physical object. But part of the process might be maybe you need a cheat sheet. You know, a lot of times we might pull in a new song that we don't have a ton of time to rehearse or practice at all, and it has 5 verses. So a lot of times what I'll do, and this is a free tip to you, is I'll type out the lyrics really small on the verses and I'll just tape them on top of my guitar, because I know, you know what, this song I'm still a little shaky on. I kind of know it, but I might forget. So I'll put them on my guitars, and then if I forget a line or something, I can just glance down real quick. And so that's a cheat sheet. Maybe your bass player is, you know, he's been playing with a music stand for 25 years, and it's going to be difficult for him to memorize music. So maybe for him, you know, maybe he writes out a few charts and just puts them on the floor, because now at least you've taken a baby step towards getting rid of the music stands. I'd rather have a musician looking at their feet every now and then than staring at a music stand, because the truth is, as guitar players, you're looking at your hands a lot anyway, so whether you're looking at your hands or the floor, it's kind of the same vibe, and I think the human nature of it is just to accept that as normal. So you maybe move some cheat sheets to the ground. Maybe that's the middle between not having stands and having stands, so some cheat sheets on the ground. And then there's a couple practical tips too. For example, if you have a piano player or keyboardist that's always in the same spot on a stand, they might always have a music stand. The bottom line is it feels natural because keyboardists have an instrument they're behind. So if you had a music stand there, it's not the end of the world. Same for drummers. A lot of times drummers are back in a cage and they could have a chart or a music stand there. There's no distraction. There's already a huge glass or whatever. So I think the most important part are your upfront people, or your back row people that are, it's between them and the audience. That's when you really want to start moving things around. And then finally, point 4, and I think this is the most important thing, is to always remember it's ministry. Grace abounds. Some people are going to have a hard time with it. For some it'll be easier, but just know this. Think the best of your people. Honor God, honor people, and know that the reason they're there, the reason they're serving, is because they want the best for the church and for the congregation and for God. So be gracious with people. Some people are going to take a little bit longer than others. That's okay. Walk with them, resource them, and then help them along in their journey, knowing that if they can be freed from the music stand, they're going to experience a new way of worshiping that they're going to appreciate. But some people take more time than others, so be gracious with them, be loving with them, and at the end of the day, honor God and honor people. And I think from that, you'll see your worship experience go to a whole new level.
So thank you so much, Fuller, for sharing that wisdom and insight with us. If you use the insight that Fuller has shared and you make a transition or a partial transition from using music stands to not using music stands in your church, we would love to hear about it. Share your experiences with us. You can write comments here. You can click here again. There will be a link that will pop up that will take you to the contact page at Worship Tutorials. We would love to hear from you. If you have other questions about worship leading, about church, about music, anything like that, at Worship Tutorials we exist to help you create the best worship environment that you can at your church. That's our heart, and that's why we do what we do. So if you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe to us here on YouTube. Share this video with your friends if you have friends or colleagues that you know are struggling with this topic as well. We would love for this video to help as many people as it possibly can. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.